Size, super simple recipes, number 48. Emergency Christmas cake. Why emergency? Well, traditionally you would steep your mixed dried fruits for weeks or even months before Christmas, adding bits of alcohol to it as you go along. But being as how it's the 20th of December, I thought we'd do something which is faster and easier. So you want a good double measure of whatever liqueur or spirit you're going to use. I'm using a drop of brandy. So all of that goes into a jug. Add 3 tea bags. We'll just bring the kettle quickly back up to the boil. And you're going to want about 350 mils of boiling water. How are we doing? A bit more. And we're going to let that steep for about 5 minutes to get the flavour out of the tea bag. So I'll come back once that's all infused. So our tea's now taken on a nice dark colour. The next job is to extract the tea bags. It's a lovely boozy smell coming off that. So once we've got rid of our tea bags, we've got 300 grams of, these are sultanas and raisins. I like yellow sultanas if you can get them. And all of that goes into the tea infusion. And now we let that sit for 24 hours and then we'll come back and finish off our cake. So our fruit, tea and booze mix has now been steeping for 24 hours. I've got the oven switched on to 150 and I've got 2 8-inch cake tins which have been well greased, and I've got a disc of parchment in the bottom just to help us get the cake mix out. So we'll set those to one side. Get ourselves a nice mixing bowl. And all of our fruit and booze mix goes into there. To that, we're going to add 180 grams of soft brown sugar. We need to give that a bit of a stir up to try and start dissolving the sugar away into the tea mix. Well, there's a lovely, I know you can't smell it, there's a lovely smell of brandy coming off that. So, into that, we need to put 1 egg. So into there goes an egg. Oh, I managed to get a bit of eggshell. then we want a quarter teaspoon or so of mixed spice. You should be reasonably generous with those. And a teaspoon of cinnamon. Give that another stir around to make sure the egg's broken. That mix is looking nice and loose now. And into there we're going to add 230 grams of self-raising flour. It's worth doing this in reasonably small amounts. What we're looking for is a just about pourable batter. Eventually it will all amalgamate, it just takes a little bit of effort. There we are. And now we want to split this into the two cake tins. I'll get hold of it without dropping it. Obviously you want roughly half in each, but that's not mixed fully. Give that another quick blast. And these go into an oven at 150 for 40 minutes uncovered to help it all rise up, and then we'll just pop the parchment cover over the top for the further 40 minutes until it's completely cooked through. So I'll be coming back Once these have had their first 40 minutes. So they go straight in the oven and I'll come back in 40 minutes. Okay, these two have had the first 40 minutes in the oven. They've risen quite nicely. All I'm going to do is just pop a quick cover over each one to prevent them burning when they go in for the second 40 minutes. Doesn't have to be anything special, it's just to prevent the surface from burning. One. There's the second one, so they pop back into the oven for another 40 minutes till they're cooked through. And I'll come back when they're done. I have 2 pieces of cake. I've now had an hour and 20 minutes in the oven. So let's just open these up. They have risen quite nicely and they've started to pull away from the edges, so that's all great. Now it's important that these are allowed to cool. So I'm going to take the thickest one, just check that that is, yeah, knife comes out clean. So they are cooked. So we'll leave those to cool, and while they're cooling down we'll make up some butter icing. So I'll come back once we're ready to do that. For our butter icing, I've got 120 grams of room temperature salted butter there, which means that the icing sugar to butter ratio is exactly twice. So I've got 120 of butter, 240 of icing sugar. So the first thing we're going to do is to gently start to whisk the butter so it gets some fluffiness into it. Then we're going to gently sieve some icing sugar into the mix. It's quite lumpy, this one, isn't it? Try and drive it through a bit with a spoon. I'll keep adding the icing sugar and I'll come back once that's all amalgamated in. Our icing's now amalgamated, and conventional wisdom is to loosen this with some milk, but I'm going to actually use yogurt because it gives a slight extra flavour to the mix, but it should also loosen it up, and this is set yogurt, so hopefully it will help keep it all a bit more coordinated. So that's our butter icing mix done. Our cakes have cooled enough now, so I'm going to take the deeper of the two, just quickly run a knife around the edge. I'm going to turn that out onto our cake base. Let's hope it lifts out alright. There we are. You can see now the reason for the piece of parchment is because the cake is quite sticky and soft, very moist. So the next job is to put a layer of our butter icing over our cake. As you can see, these aren't huge cakes, so we can get a decent enough layer, hopefully. Now obviously if I just stuck the top on, because of how loose this butter icing is, it would all just squeeze out the sides. So once this is on, we need to chill this to give that butter icing a chance to semi-set. Wow, that's delicious. So that can now go in the fridge for a couple of hours to let that set a little bit. Yum. The butter icing is now firmed up. So what we now need to do is take the parchment off the back of the upper piece and carefully lay it on the top, hopefully without breaking it. There we are. So the next stage now is just to decorate that off. So I'll come back when we're ready to do that. To prevent the marzipan layer from fermenting, we need to coat the top of this cake. I'm using 4-berry jam, which has very little bits in it. I mean there are no bits in it, so this will also help the marzipan to stick. This has just been warmed through until it starts to just bubble, so that it's brushable. I've already cut a disc of marzipan to put on the top of this. Which only leaves us to put the fondant icing on the top, so I'm going to roll that out now and then we'll fit our fondant to the top of that. There we are. So I'm going for a slightly random sort of rough edge look to it. So that we can make it sort of fall down the sides a bit. Sort of snow look. So it just needs a few final bits and that's done. So I'll put a few little pieces on the top just to pretty it up a bit. Size Emergency Christmas Cake. Job done.